Hi, I'm Jessica Booth, and I'm the Fine Arts Program Manager here at the Georgia Department of Education. And we're joined on this series of 4 webinars by some fantastic adaptive art teachers from Fulton County Schools, which is a school district in metropolitan Atlanta. These teachers are certified K-12 visual art teachers. They're not art therapists, and they're not licensed that way. They just have a gift for working with students who are special needs. And with Fulton County Schools having more than 100,000 students, they employ 15 adaptive art teachers and 15 music therapists. And each of these videos, they're very short, but they're going to give you their best tips and tricks to work with the students in your school. Now remember, you're always going to follow your local school district guidelines, and you're always going to want to work in conjunction, hand in hand with the special education teachers in your building. But please enjoy them. They're so fabulous, so fun to work with, and they absolutely love what they're doing. I hope you enjoy this time with Holly Barber, Donna Cohen, Katie Stapleton, and Wendy Seaman. Thank you for your time today and for educating Georgia's next generation of artists.
Hi, I'm Katie Stapleton, and I'm an art educator in Fulton County Schools in Metro Atlanta. More specifically, I'm one of currently 15 art educators that make up the adaptive art team in Fulton County. The adaptive art mission is to provide a meaningful art education experience for the exceptional learners in our county. Our lessons deliver the art curriculum in a manner appropriate for each child. Our teachers support individual student goals and learning through a variety of art-based activities. Adaptive art seeks to provide the K through 12 art curriculum using techniques and tools that address the learning styles of our exceptional students. I'll be discussing visual and orthopedic impairments in the art room, and I'll be sharing some tools and techniques to use with your students. Fulton County has many services to provide for our exceptional students. When I began this presentation, the first thing I did was reach out to many of my wonderful colleagues for resources, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Always reach out to others for advice. Each student is so unique, and classroom teachers, other specialists, and therapists may be a wealth of knowledge for your individual students. So let's begin by talking about visual impairments in the classroom. A visual impairment is defined as a child with a visual impairment is one whose vision, even with correction, adversely impacts a child's educational performance. Examples are children whose visual impairments may result from congenital defects, eye diseases, or injuries to the eye. Each student is unique and will have individual characteristics based on intellectual ability, developmental rate, and social competence, as well as other factors. Even when students have identical acuities and visual diagnoses, the use of their vision can be very different. And that came from this wonderful website, teachingthevisuallyimpaired.com. And when you go to this website, you can scroll down and the foundations of visual impairments and provides a list of all different types of visual impairments that your students may have and definitions for each. You can also find ways to better design your room for students with visual impairments. How can you allow for the best seating for the child? How can you avoid clutter in your classroom, which is often a problem in the art room, too much visual clutter? Can you provide audio descriptions as you're giving demonstrations? Consider lighting, and spacing, and complexity of your space. The website also provides examples of adaptations in the arts, art adaptations for your room, and art materials. So if you want more information, that's a great resource if you don't hear it all here. So let's begin. Ocular visual impairment versus cortical visual impairment. These are two biggies. Ocular vision impairment means one or more parts of the eyes are not functioning properly. This is what we typically think of when we think of a child having a visual impairment. Cortical vision impairment, or CVI. This is when there may not be a difficulty with the eyes, but the brain doesn't process the images properly. So we would deal with these in different ways. If a student has a CVI, then they might need high contrast, light, shiny objects, and movements to engage with the activity, whereas ocular may need tactile or large print, or they might need to move closer to the demonstration. We're teaching a child with a visual impairment, we consider the 5 senses, of course, sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And how can we engage those other 4 senses when sight is impaired. So here we're teaching the warm colors. So we can provide the sound of a warm fire. All right, here's my Pinterest page. I love Pinterest, and I've just pinned lots of examples of things you can use to help students with visual impairments. Many of these items can just be found at the Dollar Tree or the little bins at Target. Texture plates. I ordered these, but I do think that they have them at the Dollar Tree right now. Anytime you can add texture to your project, putting sandpaper, texture plates, anything bumpy underneath their paper to give them a sense of where things are and add that sensory experience and texture to their artwork is a great idea. As you see in this picture, they've got it outlined with tape so that they can get a sense of where their art begins and ends. You can outline their artwork with tape. You could outline shapes with wiki sticks or with puffy paint or with a glue gun. A wonderful paraprofessional that I work with made a stencil of a shamrock, and she used this poster putty on the back of it. And that way, when when the student placed it down on the paper, they can paint inside the symbol of the shamrock, and the watercolor will not bleed through because the poster putty stops it. So that is a great way for students to paint within the shape, within the symbol, and have a productive artwork. Adding lots of texture to our artwork. Feathers, you can paint with feathers. You can add them to your collage, your multimedia. Anything you can find. Oh, I love cotton balls. We can pinch, pull, work on those little fine motor skills, and we'll use the cotton balls to make clouds or sheep. We talk about why are we using cotton balls to make clouds? Because they're soft and fluffy. You could also make your own texture plates with a glue gun. We were making spider webs, and I just made a spider web with the glue guns put underneath their paper and make a rubbing of that. Of course, we can always add spices to our paint or to our Play-Doh. I made some cinnamon Play-Doh in the fall and give that sensory experience and that sense of smell. You can add Kool-Aid. Think of different ways you can add scents to your paint. And of course, the light. Oh, this one's one of my favorite. This little wand with a light at the end is great for CBI students. Put that in the paint. Bang, bang, bang. It makes a great Seurat work of art. Once again, you could use that stencil and bang, 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 bang all over with some yellow and blue and make a little green shamrock. Let's see. Oh, this little light just came from the Dollar Tree. It can be clipped onto the corner of a desk. These are just Lego-like blocks that could be used for texture. All right. Oh, and I had a child with visual impairment years ago that loved the little spin art. And in this example, there's a Big Mac attached to it. A special needs teacher or orthopedic therapist might have a Big Mac that you could borrow and attach to a spin art or to a blender if you're making paper. You get, once again, those senses, the sound, the feel of the spinning art. Here again, Kool-Aid, add it to your paints. Oh, and of course, smelly markers. And I've got some smelly markers here, and these are the holiday edition that I think they gave to lots of teachers in Fulton County years ago. This one smells like peppermint. So as we open and smell, we'll talk about why does the red smell like peppermint? Why does the brown smell like gingerbread? Why would a purple marker smell like grapes or green smell like apples? Of course, adding the bells to the paintbrush so they can hear as they paint. I've also just used the bells inside of a box with paint and rolled them around so they could hear it rolling. You can also do marble painting, but you could use bells as well as marbles. And of course, with CVI students, we want a contrast of bright colors. Over here, I have an example of leaves. Anytime you can bring a real-life example into your classroom, I do an art lesson a lot of times in the fall with Georgia O'Keeffe leaves, and I bring in real leaves, and we talk about vertical lines, diagonal lines, warm colors, and I allow them to touch the leaves, smell the leaves, crumble the leaves, feel the leaves. So anytime you can bring in a real example for your artwork. And let's see, almost forgot my favorite part. Dollar Tree again. I just got these lights at the Dollar Tree. Looks like they were during Halloween time. I taped them to the inside of my box, turned them on, put the lid back on my box, flip it over, and then you have a light box to use for tracing or just to experiment with some different shapes and colors. I think that's it for the tips and techniques for visual. To orthopedic impairments. An orthopedic impairment refers to a child whose severe orthopedic impairments adversely affect their educational performance to the degree that the child requires special education. This term may include an impairment caused by congenital anomalies, an impairment caused by disease, or an impairment from other causes. All right, my Pinterest page for orthopedic impairment. You will see up in the corner here, I have a clamping down my favorite Paper Pro hole punchers. Shout out to Paper Pro. I love their hole punchers. They're so much easier to squeeze. And here for a student that cannot squeeze, I clamp them to a block that I had and just allow them to press and make those holes for a Liechtenstein project. As I said, I love clamps and clips. So here is just a binder that we use as a slant board with a clip. This is also great. The slant board is also great for visually impaired to just bring it closer to them, but also for orthopedic impaired, allows you to hold their paper in place. I always encourage my students to use their helper hand to hold down their paper, but if a student's helper hand is impaired, that's a great way to keep their paper in place. Nice expensive scissors that they can just press, and be sure that you just use these for students that need them, because I've had students that do not need to use these, really love to bang on them, and they do break easily. There's all different types of scissors. These we put on be put on a stand as well, and just press those as well. And then if they are ready to move on to holding and just squeezing, it's a little easier than having to put their fingers in the holes. Sponges for the kitchen, but we love to use them for painting. Bang, 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 bang. Lice water we paint with. This is just cut off of a milk jug. You can glue this onto a paintbrush based off of your students, the way that they hold their brush. I've got one student that I brought this home for that I need to glue it to the paintbrush. I need to glue the paintbrush straight. He wants to hold like this. So now I can glue that on there for her. I can always add a tennis ball, or they just wrapped a towel around a pencil there. My favorite is Model Magic. And you can just take this and form a little ball out of it and add it to your paintbrush or pencil, and it forms to the shape of their hand grip. Then it dries that way, and next time they go to use that brush or pencil, they have the perfect hand grip for their hand. That's a favorite. Oh, just these little guys are fun to paint with. Oh, slick sticks. Slick sticks are great for students that don't use a lot of pressure when they're coloring, because they're slick and smooth and they come out brighter. But you would not want to use them with students that do use lots of pressure, which some of them do. Bingo blotters, find those at the Dollar Tree. Those are great. I have a film container. I don't know if they even make these anymore, but I had a whole bunch of them. So I just glued that to the back, and it makes it easy to take that off. And I can wash my stamp I'll put that back on. I can switch it out between different stamps as well. Well, I just brought home this example because it's bigger paints. Or you could just put your typical cake individually in little containers. I'll limit choices, make it a little bit easier to get to. Crayons. That was on the last page. These are a little bit easier to hold with and great for making those texture rubbings that we were talking about earlier. It says just to bake at 250 for 10 to 15 minutes. I always say low and slow, and sometimes the wax builds up, so you want to use the good crayons. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope that it was helpful advice. Be sure to reach out to me or to your colleagues if you need any more advice for helping your students with visual and orthopedic impairments. Bye!